Hey there, my name is Yami. I am your Latina next door. Welcome back to Mi Casa, where I share high-end home decor and DIYs on a budget, as well as extreme before and after room transformations. If that's something you enjoy, please make sure to hit like and subscribe so that you too can become part of the familia. Today I have 4 projects, some of which are thrift flips, and even some Mother's Day gift ideas. So a couple of months ago, I shared that my husband and I did this extreme bathroom makeover to my son's bathroom. Now the work was so extensive, we did everything in this bathroom except lay the tub. So when we were done, we were so exhausted, and I still had this area above the board and batten that was pretty empty. I came across this beautiful painting on Kirkland's website, and I just love the colors, and I thought it would go so beautifully on that wall. However, we had such a tight budget for that bathroom, and we had already maxed it out, that buying this was out of the question, so I decided to try and paint it myself. I by no means am an artist. However, I thought I'd give it a go and try and see what I can come up with to put on the wall. Now, I didn't have a canvas that was wide the way the original painting was. However, I did have 2 smaller ones that I thought maybe I can put them up vertically next to each other and create a pair, but just one image on both of them. I started by applying white paint all over the canvas, and for this, honestly, I was just using all of the DIY paint that I had already previously opened and used in previous projects, and I just began dabbling, playing around, and trying to see if I could imitate what I had seen in the original image. Now, of course, you can use any type of paint you want for this. However, there is one thing I do love about DIY paint, is that you can re-wet it and reactivate it. So whenever you want to blend 2 colors together, adding a misting spray with just water to your canvas can easily help blend the colors together and create smoother transitions, especially if you're a beginner like me. It definitely makes the job so much easier. Now, I started with the background in the back and did my waterline for the lake that's supposed to be up front, and then I began adding colors for the trees. I'm not using any kind of special brushes or anything. I'm not to that level yet, so everything that I'm using is very inexpensive and you can get at any craft store. I did, of course, channel my inner Bob Ross and use a spatula for the little tree trunks that would be throughout the painting. Then, taking a smaller artist brush, I began to create the canopy of the trees, starting with my darker blue color and then working my way with different layers, adding lighter colors as I went. And again, I am not very good at this, but I do like to give it my best effort, and I'm sure there's things that I could do much better. But I guess you just have to start somewhere and you just have to try. And then when I was done with that first canvas, I began to do the second part of the image on the other one. And I started with my waterline, making sure that they were both lining up. And I just continued the rest of the tree line and the landscape on this side. And of course, every once in a while I had to pull out my hair dryer to speed up the drying process so that I could continue painting. Now right here I am using my cell phone to record because by the time I was done I had used up all my battery and my memory on my camera. But what I'm doing is sealing the painting, especially since I was going to be putting these in a bathroom where there's going to be a lot of moisture. And what I'm using is just Big Top from the DIY paint line. It gives the paint a nice sheen, kind of making it look like an oil painting. Again, this is no masterpiece, but I did want it to last for a little bit, and I'm just using nice long even strokes to get a nice even coat on the painting. And that was it. I just let this dry overnight, and here is how it turned out. And while this wasn't an original Look for Less challenge video, I do like to share the comparisons between both of them. For the original piece, it was on sale for $104 on the website, but a couple of canvases that cost me $5 a piece, I've had them forever, only cost me $10, and that's all I had to really put in to recreate this artwork. Also, if you have an Instagram account, I'd love for you to follow me on my Instagram as I share behind the scenes and current things we're working on with you all. Now, in my last video, I shared that my mom and I went shopping for her birthday, and we went to several stores, including Kirkland's and some thrift stores. Now, when we went to one of my local Goodwills, my mom found these little pieces of decor. They look like something that would have come out from Kirkland's back in the day, if you guys remember what the decor used to be like back then in the early 2000s. But she really liked these. However, she wasn't too impressed with the colors, so I bought them for her, and I am going to remake them for her to look a little bit more up to date and neutral. So as you saw, both of these cost me a little over $6 for the set, and one of them didn't have the glass piece on it anymore. So I will have to reattach it. And the first thing I did was clean them up really good, and then I started applying my sandy blonde paint on it. She said she wanted it like a beige color, so I already had this opened. I've used it before several times and I love the way it looks, so I decided to go ahead and paint it with this. Now, because these pieces were a little bit dark and I wanted to make sure that I covered all of it completely, I did give this piece 2 coats of paint, and sometimes I even got in little crevices with a small artist brush just to make sure I had covered everything properly. Now, when both pieces had completely dried, I took some of my DIY paint clear wax to seal them. Now, I get a lot of questions about why I use the wax. Now, this is clay-based paint, so it can reactivate with water. So if you don't seal it, you have the potential of getting water on it and then the paint actually coming off because you re-wet it and it gets wet all over again. So by sealing it, you seal in the paint and you enhance the color. As you can see here, it's turning a richer, darker color after you apply the wax to it. Now you just apply it all over with a brush or a rag, and what you do is you let it sit overnight, and the following day you buff it, and it gives you this beautiful clean sheen over it. It's pretty matte, it's not shiny, but you can see the difference immediately after buffing it. Now, while my wax was still tacky, I got some of my white wax, and with a very small artist brush, I began to dip it in the wax and hit all of those little nooks and crevices all over the pieces. I wanted these pieces to have nice depth and also look a little aged and just give it a lot of dimension so that they didn't look so flat. And by adding a little bit of white wax everywhere, just like this, you can achieve that. After I had applied all of the wax through all those crevices, Then I sprinkled on some of my decrepit dust. And what this does is this fine dust gets in the rest of the nooks and crevices and any kind of texture that's on your piece. And I just sprinkle just a tiny little bit, and with another artist brush, I'd start spreading it around. Now here you can see the difference with adding the white wax and the decrepit dust all over the first piece versus what the original piece looked like. And it is such a difference. When everything dried, I used a combination of E6000 and hot glue to secure the glass piece on the top of it. Now because I could not remove the other glass piece, the bottom of that glass area looks darker than the one where I've actually repaired it. And in order to kind of offset that difference in look, you can always add a little bit of sand to the bottom of that glass piece to kind of hide that darkness and make both pieces look a little bit more cohesive. And I'll show you what that looks like in a bit. This is the following morning, and what I'm doing here is buffing the entire piece with an old sock. I've shared this tip before. I'm sure you have socks without pairs, or your kids have socks with little holes in them that they no longer use. I save these and I use these little socks to buff my pieces, add wax, add stain, you name it. So this is one of my son's little socks. And I'm just rubbing everything, trying to buff that wax and give it that extra sheen that I want. And as you can see, it kind of even darkens a few areas to kind of accentuate the white crevices that you see on the piece. Once I was done buffing these out, this is how they turned out. Now this project is something that I'm really excited about because I shared last year that I started dabbling with a little bit of candle making for ourselves here in our home. However, I've always wanted to include these in my online shop so that I can share scents that I enjoy with you all as well. I'm pretty picky when it comes to scents. I don't like anything too strong. I love mostly relaxing, soothing scents in my home, and I thought that it would be so much fun to create some candles and have them in my online shop. But if you're curious as to how this works and how you create candles, it's actually pretty simple. You just need a little bit of patience, and it's not too hard to create your very own natural soy candles with no chemicals or toxins in your home. First thing you do is set your wicks on the center of each candle container, and then use a little wick holder to hold it in place. Now these little wick holders, I like to use them upside down sometimes, which is why I'm using them that way, but you can use them the other way as well. Next, you pour your soy wax chips into your pitcher so that you can melt them down. Next, you put it on the burner and you use a candy thermometer to make sure you keep control of the temperature of the wax. You do have to set it at a certain temperature before you can add your fragrances, and you also have to let your wax start cooling before you pour it into your candle containers. Now that's something that I have been trying to make sure I get the most accurate timing and temperatures. I'm still working on it, but the cooler you can pour your soy wax candles, the less little cratering that you can get on the surface of your candle. Sometimes they're perfect and sometimes they get a little indentation here or there, but that's absolutely normal. The more you play with it, the better you get at it. Now, one of my favorite scents is Egyptian Amber, and it's got several different elegant notes in it, like clove, lavender, and orange. It also has a hint of grapefruit and even sandalwood, and it's just an elegant spa-like scent, and it's not too strong, not too soft. It's absolutely perfect. After the candles are completely dry, all you have to do is cut the wicks down. And yeah, I'm totally using my pliers for this. And in order for them to give you the most fragrance, they should set up to a week before you actually light them. Right now on my website, I have 2 options available. I have the Egyptian Amber as well as Vanilla Lavender, and both of these are elegant. They're just very nice, smooth, spa-like fragrances that I absolutely love, and I think you will too. I will be adding more fragrances in the next few days, so stay tuned for that. But these are a limited amount right now. I want to see if you guys enjoy these, and if you do, I will be making more on a very regular basis. Plus, I wanted to share these because these would be something perfect for Mother's Day. So you all know that I love creating napkin rings, and I just think that custom napkin rings are just so much fun and unique, and again, they're perfect as gifts. Now, I did have this pre-finished edge banding. It's what you put on unfinished edges of like plywood or cabinets to seal them. These were left over from my YouTube studio cabinets, and I decided to go ahead and use this. Now, if I were to do this again, I probably would use some inexpensive dollar store napkin rings for the base instead of using this, but it worked for now, and you'll see how they came out. So what I'm doing is wrapping them over each other to create a little napkin ring, and I use E6000 to adhere the end pieces together, and with some little clips, I held the end pieces together while it dried. Next, I use this new Iron Orchid Design air dry clay mold. I have used these molds for several of my projects, and I was excited because these are flowers. All you do is add a little bit of cornstarch so the air dry clay does not stick. Brush it, spread it out with a small artist brush, and then apply your clay. You'll have to work air dry clay a little bit in your hands, get it warmed up, that way it's nice and malleable. Then you press it inside of the mold, making sure that you get really in there so that the entire mold presses on to the air dry clay. You remove any excess, then you flip it over and peel it off, and you have a beautiful mold. And of course, you can repeat depending on how many you will be creating. Now they will need about 24 hours to dry completely, and once they do, I come back in with a sanding block and I sand all of the edges, making sure they're nice and smooth. Next, they're ready for paint, and I'm using the color Apothecary. Now, it's funny, this little container of Apothecary I've had for almost 2 years now, and it still works just fine. And I am going to just color the front and the back. Now, I'm not really trying to make this perfect, so I'm not going to do 2 coats. I'm just going to do 1 coat, and if there's any little specks showing from underneath, it's going to be okay because I want these looking a little rustic. And if you've ever wondered why my nails look so terrible in my videos, it's because I put them through the ringer. Of course, after I was done with the little floral pieces, I also painted the actual napkin ring, and I did both on the inside and the outside of each ring. Yep, and that's pretty much the story of my life. So, after the paint has completely dry, you want to go in with your clear wax, and you want to add wax all over in those nooks and crevices as you see here. And again, here's a comparison of wax versus no wax. Then after that, I added some of my decrepit dust and I just swirled it around with my fingers. Next, using Golden Rule, which is DIY Paint's gilding wax, I will be applying this to the very top edges of these little pieces. Then when everything was thoroughly dry, I used some E6000 to attach them onto the little rings. I thought the little rings would look better with a little bit of brush gilding wax throughout, so I went ahead and did that as well. I let them set overnight, buffed them the next day, and here is how they turned out. Well, that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below which one of these was your favorite. We'll see you all next week with another home decor and DIY video. Until then, adios!